Forum meeting today, Monday the 21st of August 2023. This is by Microsoft Teams, so I'll just welcome everybody in attendance. So we've got myself, Councillor Diane Donaldson, Councillor Majid Mahmood, and we've got several officers in attendance, so let me make sure that we get everybody here. We've got several community safety officers. We've got Chris Hamilton, Fabian, let me get the list up.
Diane, would it help you if they just introduce themselves for half a minute?
Yeah, that will be fine. If we can, if the officers can go around and introduce themselves. I'll start with Fabian.
Fabian, you're on mute if you didn't know.
Sorry, my laptop's running a little bit slow.
Fabian, for everyone else's benefit, would you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Fabian. I work for Birmingham City Council as a Community Safety Intervention Officer. So mainly I'm tasked with dealing with street community. So that's anyone that's begging, rough sleeping, and we potentially go out and offer support. Also work alongside a colleague, Lisa Blake.
Thank you, Fabian. Next, Jordan Westcar.
Hi Diane, I'm Jordan. I'm one of the community safety intervention officers as well, mainly focused on antisocial behaviour throughout East Birmingham, and I work under Chris Hamilton. Are we keeping our cameras on? Are we keeping our cameras? Do you want me to turn you?
You can, when you're speaking, if you put your camera on when you're speaking, you can keep it off for the rest of the time, that's fine.
All right then.
Okay. Thanks, Jordan. And then we've got Lisa Blake.
Hi, I'm Lisa Blake, also work alongside Fabian, doing the same role, part of the community safety team.
Thank you. And thank you. Mushtaq Hussain.
Mushtaq Hussain, Hodge Housing Manager.
Thank you, Mushtaq. Nadeem Aziz.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, this is Nadeem, Neighbourhood Action Coordinator covering Bromford and Hodge and Chardenne wards.
Thank you. Neil O'Grady.
Afternoon, Neil O'Grady for Community Safety on the exempt accommodation project.
Thank you. Do we have any more officers in attendance? No, so we've got 3 other attendees, so I'm presuming they're all local residents. Basil, good afternoon. Fiona.
Hi, sorry, I'm from Hodge Hill NNS.
Oh, hi, I thought I recognised you. I couldn't place you. Thank you, Fiona. And Ishmael.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, Ishmael. Thank you for attending. And I just would like to advise everybody that this meeting will be recorded, and the copy of the recording of the meeting will be available for future record via the council's YouTube site. This afternoon's meeting it's a one-item agenda, and it's around antisocial behaviour and street begging issues. This is following on from concerns raised by local residents of inappropriate behaviours by occupants of some of the nearby sheltered accommodation and street begging around the Tesco superstore, which seems to have become more of an issue of late. It has been ongoing for several years, but it seems to be escalating recently. We have invited the police, and they will be in attendance later on. They're quite busy. And we've also invited Tesco's, but they were unable to supply a representative to attend this afternoon's meeting. So my colleague, Councillor Mahmood, will be writing to Tesco's to raise the issues directly to the management. Okay, thank you. Can we, Chris, could you just give us an outline of what work's been happening lately?
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
Diane. So obviously, previously there was a meeting called. There was a number of concerns raised by local residents, and some through Councillor Mahmood, and some through yourself, Diane, in regards to the location itself around the Fox and Goose and the adjoining or adjacent roads. So there were a number of issues, primarily begging and what appeared to be people homeless on the street. That was reported by local residents in and around the Fox and Goose shopping precinct. I'm told as well, and I was aware, that that may have extended itself over to the sheltered housing scheme, which is close by Tesco's, which we know already has a little bit of an overflow of certain individuals, could even be the same individuals that come from the Fox and Goose over to Tesco's or vice versa. That's playing out, as we understand, in the wider area, and coupled with the issues around Brockhurst Road, where there is some thoughts or certainly some allegations that those people who are begging or who are in the area, both begging and taking drugs or selling drugs on, could be connected to one or two properties on Brockhurst Road. Also, there's another connection, as you know, Councillor, with 5 Darley Avenue, and individually we'll go around the guests today, because I know there's a lot of work being done around that, and I think we've got a lot of findings. We certainly haven't got the answer, but we've certainly got a lot of work to cover. And also it was hopeful, I thought, for today. Tesco's are coming along. They could have been also telling us what problems they've got and what efforts they've made themselves in regards to targeting the individuals, or not targeting, or identifying the individuals and ultimately referring them on to the right partners and agencies. I know a lot of that work has gone on by the officers in attendance today from the community safety team. In addition, I know Jordan, the intervention officer, has been liaising with the local community, so the local policing team, Sergeant Alan Keynes and his officers, Robert Archer and Anthony Hadley. So again, they may well come in as officers are talking around the table, Diane and also Majid. I'll let them explain further, because I know each and every one of them have done a little bit of work. It's all very much joined up, you'll be pleased to know. I think the only missing link today is Tesco's.
Yeah, from Tesco's, we had a attendance of a PCSO at one of our meetings, Adam Ahmed, and he said that police would pick up any issues that were outside the doors of Tesco's, and that Tesco's would only intervene for incidents that are within their premises.
Yeah, that led me to ask the question of one of our officers in regards to, surely the car park area is part of Tesco's, and as such, if it's if I can like reflect on a Tesco's that I know, it tends to be out the sliding doors and into a car park. Yeah. I'm not sure what they're saying. Are they saying out on the streets is not theirs? I totally understand that, but throughout the car parking area, surely that belongs to them. And I think the car parking area is one of the locations where some of the individuals tend to hang around, because it's a decent shelter.
That's where they do hang around. They do hang around on both sides. I mean, I was there last week for my eye surgery, and there was several at both sides, on the street side and on the sheltered side within the car park. So when I mentioned, would you like me to refer you to streetwise? Are you homeless? And that they all disappeared. But I think they came back after a short period.
Yeah, and I think the one concern, and I'm sure it's voiced by everyone around the table, is what you can't always do, and I hope people can understand this. You can't always go out en masse, because sometimes when you go out en masse, and in our experience, what you get is people making off starburst, especially if it's a group, and knowing the junction. If something happened as they starburst and somebody got run over, it would be all on the wrong headlines. So there is a cautious approach to, as I'm sure Fabian and Lisa will take you through. There is a cautious way of engaging with them, and it's the proper way. It's the proper way. So there is, again, I'll leave it to them to explain. There is an absolute determined effort to address the issues, but ultimately it's about trying to engage and understanding, identifying and helping and assisting those individuals. It's not a case of just issuing some kind of community protection warning letter or a warning letter just to move on. It's about engagement first, and then obviously if there's a repeat pattern, if there's a repeat type of behaviour, and ultimately there have been warnings before and those engagements haven't worked, it would be a consideration to move on to something much stronger, such as a community protection warning letter or an injunction, civil injunction. But I think, Diane, I've tried to summarise it all as best I can. You can call upon any of the officers and they can kind of give you an update on where we're all at presently.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'll call upon Neil because he's been doing a bit of work with the exempt accommodation, supported accommodation providers. So if you could just give an update where we're at. Thanks, Neil.
Right, is this in relation to any specific addresses or just in general in the area?
Well, there's a handful of specific addresses. We don't need to name them, but we know what they are.
Yeah, because it's not. Yeah, I know what you mean. Ongoing since our last meeting regarding Brockhurst in particular. That's ongoing. I haven't received any complaints on that one, so there's nothing for me to act on that at the moment. We are liaising with the provider and the MA, the managing agent. They're all doing what they should be doing, really. There was no links with the beggars at that property at all, so there's been nothing to do with that one since the original one. In general, I've done a couple inspections in the last, I'd say, 2 months. Some have been linked with beggars, street drinkers, that kind of thing at the Fox and Goose. They're ongoing cases. I can't go into specifics. I've updated Chris with the names, date of birth, that kind of thing of the people we think linked with supported accommodation and the street cohort around the area, and then we'll be linking in with Fabian and Lisa to get these kind of people looked at. But at the moment, the issues we're having is they're causing ASB in the properties. They're getting evicted for the ASB, and they'll just end up popping up somewhere else in the area. It's just kind of keeping tabs on them, which is
it's mainly the Darley road ones that have been causing concern of late. Now, I see Chris has got his hand up. Did you want?
Only, I mean, I know there's been a lot of email exchanges around one of the properties, 18, and I'm not talking about people specific, I'm just talking about locations. Now, I know Neil's done a lot of work around that and worked with the managing agent as well, and I think there's been actions taken by the managing agent in regards to a common name that kept cropping up. So I think Neil is more than satisfied that he's got real buy-in from that managing agent. I think one of the things, Diane, that was mentioned before was the possibility of a premises closure order, specifically on that property. Now, I know from liaising with Neil and Alan Keynes and ultimately Jordan as well that currently the evidence would not support a closure order, whether that come from the police or whether that come from the community safety team. So to kind of address the underlying elements of it, that's why Neil went out and visited number 18 Brockhurst Road and built up a particularly good relationship with the current provider. Neil, did I steal your limelight there? Sorry.
No. Yeah, that's ongoing. But they were happy to comply with certain extra vetting and that kind of thing of their tenants, more drop-in sessions. They already had CCTV. There was already monitoring out of hours. So yeah, they've been compliant. And then with Darley, Darley's ongoing. I can't speak too much into Darley. I've got a fair few complainants now, and it's in a monitoring period at the moment with the neighbours. They've all got my numbers, and it'll be going from there.
Okay.
Just to add to that, Diane, was 43A Brockhurst Road, which I think was part of the sheltered housing scheme.
Yeah.
I know Mushtaq is here today. I do know from the housing team or the housing that they have written out to the tenants of that particular property and warned them against their visitors, which I believe would be one of the people identified as begging locally.
Right.
I don't know whether Mushtaq knows enough about that to add any comment.
Yeah, I think there was a joint visit on the 10th of August with 2 of our officers and PCSO at the property. I think it was PCSO Robert Archer from the Hodge team visited with the 2 of my officers at the property. They spoke to the tenant at length. He denied a few of the issues regarding that, but he did admit that a lady by the name of Gabby was staying with him for a couple of weeks, as she told him that she was homeless, and obviously he's told us now that she's moved out and she's living somewhere in Stetchford. She's got her own accommodation, and there's no one else living with him at the moment. Obviously he's been advised, he's been given a final warning letter, and obviously we're going to continue to monitor his tenancy and obviously his visitors, but the person that was living with him, a homeless person by the name of Gabby, has now moved out and she's got her own accommodation in Stetchford somewhere, we've been advised.
Okay, thank you, Mushtaq. That's interesting to know. I'll just hand over to the Brockhurst Road residents. Ishmael, are you representing the residents today?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Diane.
I just wanted to know how is the situation there? Has it calmed down since these interventions have been taken?
Not really, because what Mushtaq mentioned, I understand that woman's moved out, but only last night, early hours, there's people walking in and out of the house again. So he's probably telling you that that woman's particularly not living in there, but there was another woman who left yesterday with a big black bag. So I don't know when this other woman moved out, but there's obviously someone else. And that regards to it's not one particular woman. There's 3 females and actually 2 guys that come there. So it's regular. We see it on a regular basis. I understand they've been down to speak to them, but I'm sure they say it the first time. So obviously, if he spoke to them on the 10th, this is 11 days later. It's only 10 days later. Yesterday, we've had the same issue again. To be honest, nothing's really changed there.
Okay.
He has complained. He's been speaking to some of the tenants and saying that about me, regarding that, that I complained about him being outside, being drunk and all that. But I told him, listen, what you're doing drunk, that's a different issue altogether. It's the fact that you got the local drug addicts that are, some of them are homeless. And one thing I need to mention is that these people that are going to his property, they're also living around Ward End, in other properties in Ward End, because they're all.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you just repeat that?
The people that are going to his house, not all of them are homeless. Some of them are living in properties in Ward End, just off on the Bromford Lane. So I don't know, there must be 2 or 3 supported accommodations there too, because they're there regular. They're coming into Tesco and coming straight to his, and I've seen him physically buying drugs on the road, and I have to tell him off. But it's no point me getting into a debate with him, because I've told him once or twice. We ended up getting into an argument, so I'd rather leave it. But this particular woman who's moved out, I'm not sure who she is, because we've had 2 females only last night in the early hours that I've seen chatting, because they walked in and there was people already in there, so they've then walked back out. So it's a kind of regular occurrence, Diane, to be honest with you. Nothing's changed here.
And if I could also mention something, sorry, it's Faisal.
Yes,
they're not just they're not just leaving quietly. They're just sometimes screaming in the middle of the night, rolling around on the grass, having arguments. Like just last night, the one lady threw all her black bags on the floor and then started searching her black bag, saying, "I'm coming for you, I'm coming for you." This basically woke me up, and my sister was really terrified because of this. So it's not just they're leaving quietly, they're just causing havoc on the street.
Did you actually report this to the police? Because this is the issue that we're having, that the police aren't receiving 101 calls about this. There's no log, so that makes it difficult for the officers of Birmingham City Council to take any action if they haven't got the evidence of police reports.
To be fair to you, Diane, this is what I let Munir deal with. Munir has had a log, and obviously I spoke to Sergeant Kane actually on my road with regards to that property. I don't understand what else we need to tell them, because we've told them more than enough, and nothing's happened. So it's no point us keep on making logs, because nothing's actually ever happened there. So Munir, I think, sent 4 or 5 logs, which I know of because she put in our email towards you. I spoke to Sergeant Kane on the road myself, physically, about this house, and he told me in front of his face, and also someone else was with him, yeah, we've got a log of this property, and we're keeping an eye on it. So, and this is talking nearly 3 months ago. Okay. That is when I actually spoke to, physically actually spoke to him myself, over the road from the property itself. So I don't
understand. We'll take that up with Sergeant Kane, so he'll be here later on, because this is the messaging that I'm receiving from the police. So I don't know there's been some breakdown along the line. So we need to clarify what reports have come in. Because this is the evidence that Birmingham City Council need. Obviously, this person is vulnerable and he needs some sort of help, because I think these people are taking advantage of him in his home.
It also occurs at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the night. No one wants to call the police for 15, 20 minutes making a log when they have work 7 in the morning tomorrow.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I can understand that. But it's to go through a process. There is Birmingham City Council require evidence in a certain form.
To be fair to you, Diane, regards to him being a victim, that's what I thought at the start, but it's not the case. He invites them to his house because they've addicts have had fights between themselves, and if you go to his property, you'll see the windows have been broken because they have fights between themselves, and they start breaking his windows. And we've heard that on a regular night. They keep us up as well. So, the reason why, like Faisal will tell you, the reason why there's no one doing any logs, because we've done the logs, we've rang the police, we've complained. There's not much more we can do, because we're just doing the same thing over and over again. And like I said, Mushtaq said on the 10th, they've been there. And like I said, almost 10, 11 days later, and they've actually physically gone and told him. It's not made much of a difference, to be honest with you.
Mushtaq's got raised his hand.
Yeah, obviously, if we can take Ismail's details down after the meeting, then obviously we can get the ASB officers to link with him. Obviously, get some statements or details off him, and then obviously we can take that as evidence. But obviously, if things have happened, we last went out on the 10th. So if things have happened since then, obviously we need to follow that up. But if we can take your details down, and we can get the officers to contact you, and we can start obviously whatever information you have, you can obviously give it to us. Then obviously we can just take things from there with the police. But obviously, like Diane said, that there's a process that we have to follow, obviously with warnings, and then after the warnings, then obviously if things continue, then obviously we have to actually go down the eviction process. But there has to be overwhelming evidence, particularly if there's vulnerable people, and in this current day and age, obviously evicting person with vulnerabilities is very difficult. But obviously we need that evidence from you. So if I can get your details and get an officer to contact you, and obviously we can start collating some evidence that's happened since after the 10th.
Okay, thank you, Mushtaq. Ismail, is that okay if I get pass your details on to Mushtaq, and then get an officer to come out?
That's fine, because when I speak to Mushtaq, obviously Faisal only lives around a few doors away. We'll both speak to him, so we'll give him information.
Collect all your evidence, and then that can go to Mushtaq, and they can go through the process that they need to carry out.
That's fine.
Excellent. Okay.
Thank you.
Any more on the disappointingly, Tesco's is not here too. So I don't know personally who that land belongs to, if it belongs to Tesco directly or it belongs to a third party. I don't know. Is there anybody who can throw any light on that? No. So Majid's going to write to Tesco, so that will be brought up. Majid.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a number of issues with Tesco. It's not just the antisocial behaviour. They can do a lot more because we still get lots of complaints about issues there with people asking for money and stuff on the doorstep of Tesco, which is on private land. So it's outside of our vicinity. Secondly, the land on Brockhurst Road, whenever there's fly tipping, we end up picking it up as a council. But we've done that search now on the land and it's actually owned by Tesco itself. So that where the electricity substation is, all that footpath next to the wall and the green space next to it where most of the fly tipping takes place, that's Tesco itself. And I wanted an answer from them that they would get someone to also clean that in the morning when they do the rest of the car park. It's not happening. Even the bush that they've got next to it, that's got so much rubbish inside the bush now, including the old street plate. But again, Tesco, it seems like they've not touched that at all since they cut the shrubbery at the bottom. It's not been touched at all, and it makes the whole area look down because people are walking past and seeing that, thinking people don't really care. And then also the graffiti, we've moved so many times from the substation. Again, that's something Tesco should be leading on, but they haven't. And we've still got the issue. I mean, just yesterday, Sunday, yesterday, I reported another trolley that was on Brockhurst Road because it had been left by a customer at Tesco. And again, we've not had no feedback. I know there's a new manager, and I've not managed to meet the new manager since the last manager that we had. And she was pretty good, to be fair. She was quite, she always used to come back to us. But at the same time, Tesco do provide us with that room for the advice surgery, so I can't knock them too much. And they have done a lot of work to stop the illegal car racing that used to take place. They do facilitate support for Rising Stars Academy next to their car park. But I do think now, I didn't want to go over the head of the manager at Tesco, but 2 meetings now on the trot, not having a presence in a meeting where we've got local residents, city council officers and the councillors, I think that's really disappointing. So I think unless someone objects in this meeting, I do intend to write to the chief executive to outline my concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Maggie. No objections from me are welcome. I need to a letter to the chief exec. Hopefully that will bear some fruit. Thank you. I've got Ishmael. Did you want to come in?
Yes, Diane, you know, I'm ex-council employee myself, and Madge brought a good point there in regards to there's a department that specialises in finding who the ownership of certain land belongs to. I'm sure they'll be able to work out exactly whether Tesco own it or not. Because to me, it's obvious Tesco own that car park because when we've had issues with it before, they've always dealt with these kind of things. So for now, for them to, they've said it for quite a few years now that it's not our problem, it's not our problem. But you know, as a customer, you think it's after using someone's car park, it's a private car park, so just be charged for it because it's theirs, their own for their customers. Even with when I've gone there a few times, like I said, the issues we had people using a crack pipe right outside the front entrance. Like when I emailed you, and I had to go upstairs, tell the security guards. They had 3 security guards on upstairs. But I'll be honest, they didn't really seem very bothered because they got the addicts walking in and out the store using the toilet, standing outside, and there's people actually sleeping rough in the car park now. There's like 3 at the one side, 3 on this side, and there's a mattress in between it. And even in regards to the last meeting, we mentioned them doing some in regards to the trolleys, where they switch that magnet back on because there's only a plug on top of the, I've seen it because one of the employees told me, on top of the shutter, there's a plug which they got to put back in the wall and switch that button.
Yeah, I think as to use it, you can't take the trolleys off there.
Exactly. That's all it is. It's that one plug they've got to switch on.
Yeah.
I don't know for what reason they don't do that now, because back when you were doing that before in the past, the wheels would lock. Now we see on a regular basis now people just pushing the trolley right past Tesco, and they're taking the Tesco for a walk. You got kids then playing around with trolleys and throwing them into the road.
It's a health and safety hazard there. Okay, thank you, Ishmael. I'm sure Maggie will take that up with them when you put in his letter. Jordan, you've got your hand up. Would you like to come in?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to speak about the Tesco's car park because I have been speaking to PC Tony Hadley about the regular patrols the neighbourhood police team have been doing in areas such as, you know, the Fox and Goose, and they also patrol Brockhurst Road. Are they not interacting with some of the disturbances that you're describing outside the Tesco? Because they have told me that it's daily that they patrol.
It's no, because they're, well, I think even if they do interact, it's not, there's no positive results.
Yeah, because to be honest with you, every time that I've ever spoke to someone, no one even contacts you. But to be honest, they don't. When you go upstairs to the security guard, they seem baffled when you talk about it to them. And regards to these complaints that we put in, I've been noticing emails always put their email address into forward into them as well. I've never had a response from them, never. And I've even physically gone and told them that this was happening outside your store. So we let a manager know. I've spoke to people that were the duty managers as well, told them. They said they'll pass it on to somebody else. But and these have been severe situations where, when I told you before, that man was exposing himself outside. This guy's using a crack pipe openly in public, but he's sitting by the door begging. So when I told him, he just shrugged his shoulders and just walked off and sat by the back entrance, by the back door.
Yeah, I think there's still some more work we can do about with the public, encouraging them not to give to beggars.
Yeah, it's different because I'm not sure if are there any officers going to be joining the meeting, because I think it's best if they speak on it directly.
He would be coming, but he would be late entering the meeting. So,
okay.
Bev, did he give us a time roughly? What time he'd be attending?
He said roughly about 3:45.
Okay, so another 10 minutes or so. Right, so if he does attend later, I'll put these questions to him. Well, Jordan, I'm not aware of any patrols over the Tesco side on Brockhurst Road. Chris,
Well, before Chris.
Oh, sorry, Fabian, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Fabian, can you come in, please?
Yeah, so myself and Lisa visited Tesco on Friday, and we did a patrol of the car park, and we'd come across 3 people. So one chap was there with his son. We managed to get his son help with St. Basil's, who had come to collect him and take him to their hub for onward support. The dad remained in situ, but obviously we're gathering intel and getting information from him what's going on. There's one chap on the mattress that was mentioned. We spoke to him, and he's actually housed somewhere locally, and we told him to get up and to go home, essentially, because he's got somewhere. And he stated he has a support worker as well. So he was moved on. And then there's a chap that turned up who I used to work in the city centre, dealing with ASB, and I noticed him from there. So I know his name, and I managed to get some information from him, and gathering some intel about what he was doing there. He seems like he's kind of running people to beg or to drug deal, but that was all captured on our body-worn videos, which will be shared with the local police.
Okay, thank you for that information. It's very useful. Yeah, that is a frustrating thing. Many of these people, they're not homeless. They're living in supported accommodation, so everything is provided for them. So there is no reason for them to be begging. Exactly. And what we need is more interventions with the operators of the supported accommodation to ensure they're providing the right level of support. Majid, you wanted to come in on about the owners. Tesco do own the car park.
Yeah, I was just going to say they do own the car park, but when the planning went through at the time, it's effectively a public car park, because that was the reason why we allowed the planning to go through. That's made available to all the businesses and all the residents they want to park. That's why we had it was such a challenge to get it closed overnight, because of the illegal car racing, but we did manage that. And there hasn't been any comeback from anyone in relation to that, because everyone was supportive of closing it. The issue is the land on Brockhurst Road. They own that as well, and that's the one that they haven't been maintaining, which is from the entrance all the way through to where we've got the wooden sort of like that trip rail. That's housing land, which is owned by housing, which I'm sure Mushtaq can confirm, where the sheltered accommodation scheme starts. But a lot of the ASB does take place on the Tesco land. behind that electricity substation and on that piece of land. Like, we've cleaned it ourselves, haven't we, Chair? Because no one was cleaning it because the council was saying it's not ours, it's Tesco's cleaning. So that's the part I want to include. But the other thing I was going to say, I'm waiting for Sergeant Keynes, but the public space protection order, that does cover the entire site of Tesco, doesn't it? So it wouldn't be, I mean, I wouldn't, security at Tesco, I don't really blame them, because it can be quite challenging for them as well to try to evict someone from the premises. But they need to do it in collaboration with the local police. And if we've got PSP, or the reason it was brought in was to stop this type of ASB in that area. So I would really like to know from Sergeant Keynes, when he does come, how many, how many on the Tesco site itself. Thank you.
Chris has just come in to say that it isn't live presently. The PSPO isn't live.
If I may, please,
Yeah,
Diane. So obviously, what we've heard from a lot of agencies is their approach to this from an intervention point of view, and I mentioned the emphasis around that. I do know that Sergeant Keynes' team are also about intervention before enforcement, and I know that doesn't always sit well with people who are experiencing these types of incidences, in some cases repeat instances. Sorry. However, I think from so far today, I think there is a very, very much appreciated effort from a lot of different professionals in regards to identifying who they are, signposting who they are, working with the landlords. The landlords and the managing agents, as Neil will tell you, is a more difficult one, because their remit as a landlord, most of them will tell you that they don't address antisocial behaviour. They are there to manage the tenancy, and it takes you down another path, like I'm sure it's taken Neil down another path in that, as well as identifying and dealing with the individual, which obviously we will. You then have to start dealing with the managing agents, which is another difficult route to take. Ultimately, we've got the threat of a premises closure order, but we don't deal with too many of those, thankfully, because we happen to think we're engaging with them well. But ultimately, what you get then is Neil will liaise with the managing agents, landlords or owners. They will then remove the individual. And again, it's no one else's fault. It's just the way the system works. That person could potentially become homeless. So you don't win. So the effort, what I'm trying to say is remind people that the effort and the emphasis around intervention is to stop evictions, stop them from being displaced. It's to work with them, it's to offer them support. And in a lot of cases, it goes unappreciated by the individuals. But in some cases, we do strike lucky and we actually turn that person's life around. So the emphasis, as I say, as I'm sure you know, Diane, is about that. Going on about the PSPO, there was a public space protection order there some 4 years ago, when we had a number of incidents, a number of evidence to support such an order. And I can send that around to people to have a look at. We don't have that level of evidence, and we certainly don't have that level of intelligence at the moment that would support a PSPO. Happy to discuss it at the next local community safety partnership. But as I say, there's a strict process, there's a thorough process around the PSPO. And if people want to, we can certainly start a conversation with the wider partners at the next meeting. But it would mean whoever ward it falls into, they would have to be prepared to come along and make a presentation or make an application for that PSPO to start a conversation up.
Okay, I think that's something we can take the views of local residents if that's something that they would like to see.
Sorry, lastly, I'd just like to add, Diane, the reason why the previous PSPO was not continued or not extended was because of the work of the local police team in regards to issuing community protection warning letters and their engagement with predominantly the street beggars, which was the prominent issue at the time. And so, because of their own successful engagements, it didn't support any fresh application for a new PSPO.
I think the situation we did see a period where the issue wasn't as bad, but now I think it's turned a corner and it's
and the sad thing is, and I don't mean for this to be doom and gloom, really I don't. The one thing, and Diane, you might know this, and Councillor Mahmood, the one term you will not get written into a PSPO is around begging. In Birmingham, they will not allow the term begging to form part of any PSPO. And that's come through.
It's not the begging that is predominantly the issue. It's what they do with the funds of once they got funds in, then that attracts the dealers, and then they're using. That's the main problem. If they were just begging and taking the money and going, I don't think the residents would be overly concerned. But anyway, Councillor Mahmood.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You know, I agree with Chair. It's not the begging issue that we know that can't be included in PSPO, but it's all of the factors that residents like Ismail have brought to the ward forum over the last nearly 3 years now, and that probably explains why we haven't been. The police have been kind of weak in dealing with the problems associated with the exempt housing that we have on Brockers Road and on the land that Tesco owns. So if we were to bring the PSP back, we could include the evidence that's been provided. I've got lots of emails from the residents. We could use that evidence, and then that would strengthen the powers of the police and the staff at Tesco. Also, and not forgetting, Chris, there's lots of antisocial behaviour that takes place at the Fox and Goose. If you go at the rear of what's it now? It's Iceland, isn't it? There's a massive car park at the rear there. There's lots of antisocial behaviour that takes place there as well overnight. And now that we're not councillors for Ward End, but I still get told a lot of the stories that are still happening in that, but I've never got involved apart from passing the information on to the councillors, councillor in Ward End. And to the people who are complaining that they need to contact the local police. But that PSPO was extremely helpful in managing the ASB that was taking place. And I think it's because that's now been, it wasn't renewed. And I accept that the issues that the police have been dealing with around community protection, but it's more, I have sympathy with the police, and I'm sure all the residents have, because we know their numbers have been obliterated over the last 10 years. When I was first elected as a councillor, top of my head, I think there was 650 police officers in the Hodge constituency. I think we're down below 100 now, so I do sympathise. But at the same time, we can't allow these type of behaviour to continue to take place without us taking appropriate action against the perpetrators. Now, that one property on Brockers Road, that's probably caused more complaints to myself and Diane than any other single property in the entire ward of Bromford and Hodge. That's how bad it actually is. That's how bad it actually is. And no one, I feel weak at this because I feel like I've got my hands tied behind my back because I get constant complaints about it. Personally, I would shut it down like we did with the pub on Bromford Drive, but that would take a considerable effort from the residents in logging every single issue that's taking place and stuff. And it's not fair on them either. We all know the issues and the police resources. If you didn't have that exempt housing property in Brockers Road, the police resources would be lifted so they can actually deal with the other issues that arise in the ward as well. So we would actually be doing the police a huge favour if that was to happen. So I'm fully behind this. And I think, Chris, if we could expedite a proposal for a PSPO to cover both the Tesco side, Brockers Road, and the Fox and Goose, I would be very supportive and happy to make any presentation to whoever I need to make that presentation to. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we can start with an explanation, Councillor, at the next LCSP. Excuse me for using that word, expediting. I think expediting a PSPO, or certainly moving it forward, is a slow process. Again, I would call it a thorough process, and it takes a matter of months. And even then, it has to go through cabinet, it has to go through several reviews. It goes to the OPCC's office for them to do their due diligence and review it as well. And from my experience, what Simon Foster comes back with, the OPCC, are more questions than answers. I don't mean that in a comical way, but he's obviously paid due diligence to the legislation it covers. But happy to raise it. Councillor Donaldson, happy to raise it at the next LCSP as a possibility.
Yes, please, Chris. I think we welcome that, and I think the residents would welcome that as well. So that's something we'll happily, if you could raise that, that would be most appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything anybody else would like to add on those issues that have been raised so far? Any comments?
Diane, if I may, please.
Yes, certainly.
And Neil, I know Neil can't commit too much information here, but the property at 18 Brockhurst Road appears to be the prominent one that Councillor Mahmood is identifying as a problematic particular location. And I think Neil has gone in, as I understand, has spoken with the managing agents. There are several persons within that property, I think one of which may have been removed, in which case that would, I believe, lessen the impact of that particular property. But all said and done, I think Neil and the managing agents' conversations to date have been quite positive. I don't know whether Neil wants to come in on that one.
Yeah, no, you've covered it all. It's all been positive from their side. They're happy to comply. We haven't received any complaints. There's not much I can do about them, to be fair.
All right. Thank you, Neil. Ishmael, would you see you've got your hand raised if you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, because obviously, saying in regards to they've sorted things out inside, I think Faisal, if he's still here, he'll tell you as well. It's now we don't get as much noise inside the property, but it's all outside. We got loads of cars of young lads that park up there. There's people walking in and out the property, and I know they're not living there because if Faisal's listen, he'll know this too. So the problem wasn't totally gone. The reason we don't look, Madge made a good point. The reason we don't complain is nothing gets done. The fact is, a lot worse has happened. As far as he's concerned, he's changed. He's not the one that lives here. We live here, and all our problems have stemmed from this property originally. And the fact is that it's like an open in and out hotel because the lads that whoever lives there knows people, and there's people who've previously lived there in the past that come and go. So I don't know what their CCTV footage is used for, because on a regular basis, on nights, on the opposite side of the road, there's groups of guys parked up. We found gas canisters, which we just remove and throw away because we ain't got time to complain and wait for someone to pick it up now because it's just a mess on the road. We just pick them up, throwing them in. And we got lads walking in the house, parking right outside the property, over the road. And all those people are linked to that property. If that, let's say, for instance, that house is empty, which Faisal will tell you before our house was empty, there was no cars parked up at night because we all live here. It's like a residential area, so people are working at first thing in the morning. So we had no one hanging around there at all. Now, on a regular basis, every night we've got loads of cars parked either side, and all those guys are walking in and out of that property. And I know for a fact they don't live there. Maybe one of their friends does, but it's like a drop-in centre for them.
And my belief is that all these properties are linked, that maybe the dealers are going to all these different properties, including the one in Darley and the people that are begging outside Tesco's. They're all the same cohort. So
yes, I agree.
I think we do need to take serious action, robust action at this point, because it's just getting worse. It's not going away.
I think what will happen at some point, those people identified at these locations may well be the same people that both Fabian and Lisa may well encounter, and it's about linking them together to show a pattern of behaviour, and ultimately then engaging with them. If that fails, it's taking more robust action.
I suppose the difference with this property, Diane, is that those people will just normally get moved on. They're not the ones that are hanging around the streets, that are homeless. If you know what I mean, their antisocial behaviour is a lot different to where they've. It's because the people they're linked to now that are hanging around in and around the house. That's our problem. And regardless of what Neil goes and speaks to them inside the property about, that's not going to stop that. Because that particular property and the type of property is, that's always going to be the issue here. That's one thing that's never changed. That's the reason why me, Faisal, and other residents, I've noticed a lot of them haven't turned up today because I've realised that what we were trying to explain, obviously you and Madge understand what we were trying to say, but they're only talking about what's inside the property. That was issue first, but it's what the property brings to the road. That's the problem, because these lads are probably just normal lads hanging around, obviously into other trades, which we don't want to go into, but they seem very comfortable parking up here, walking in and out of the property. And ideally, that's what we're trying to avoid, basically. That's the reason we keep on bringing it up. In regards to the tenants, maybe there's a few of them that don't get involved in these kind of things, but the problem we've got now is that there's people that are used to going in and out of this property, people they know, and that get attracted to this sort of property, especially this one.
Right, so it's all sort of linked up, the dealing and other behaviours that are going on. I'll take Faisal, and then Neil has got his hand up. I'll take Faisal first.
Yeah, I live next to number 18, and what happens is daily there'd be a car or a van that would come. This would attract a lot of youth and other cars, and then they would just come inside the property for some reason. So there'd be different kinds of youth going into and outside the property. And then during the night, yeah, there'd be parties late till night that even me and Ishmael could hear. He actually lived 3 doors down, and he could still hear the music and party. So with the issue that there's only 1-2 people in the property, true, every night tends to be parties.
I think you got your microphone off, Diane.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't catch all of what Faisal said.
And what I was saying is that every day there tends to be vans, cars that are always parked up in front of that property.
Bev, you got your mic on? Bev, you've got your mic on. Oh, it's off now. Okay. Sorry, Faisal.
I was just saying that daily there's a van or a car keeps bringing stuff into the property, out the property, and as soon as the car arrives, then all the people just tend to line up outside the house and come into the house. And sometimes the car would come late at night and they'd go inside. They'd have these kind of parties that would wake the surrounding neighbors up till 1-2 o'clock in the night, which I have called the police about before, which nothing had been done.
Right, and that's on a regular basis.
Yes, the regular basis. Like it's a van. So sometimes it's a van, sometimes it's a car. They unload a load of stuff inside the house, and then a load of other cars come in and start going into and out the house. And it's different people.
And have you got all this log? Are you keeping a diary of things?
No, but I can stop because this is a daily thing. So whenever I
think
see
we
the
need,
van again,
you know, really need to get any serious action taken. We really need to get this logged with the police and a diary kept. I know it's a big strain on the residents to have to do all this, but unless we get this evidence, nothing's going to happen. I'll hand over to Neil and probably explain more about this.
No, I was just going to say that on Brockhurst, on the initial inspection, we get police intel. We've got a seconded police officer, and it's more suspicion that they're linked. The tenants are linked between different properties with drugs and whatnot. But on this current crop of tenants, we've looked into it, and there was nothing suspicious at all with these tenants. So there was nothing linking them to criminal activity. From our side, without any proof, we can't act on anything. Also, they are allowed to have guests inside the property. Obviously, not at night causing parties and whatnot, but they are allowed to have people in and out of the property. But like we said last time, we just need it logged if action can be taken and evidence sent over. Without it, we can't do anything, unfortunately, because we're not seeing it ourselves.
Okay, thank you. I was hoping that Sergeant Keynes would be here and we could clarify the number of logs that are going in about the issues, but I just got there's a message in the chat from Jordan. Apologies, guys. I'm going to have to leave the meeting as Councillor Donaldson has stated any incidents of ASB on Brockhurst Road and outside Tesco must be logged and recorded consistently in order for us as officers to take action. So that's the overriding message of this meeting. It's a lot of pressure on the residents. I understand that, but if we need to move forward, then we need this evidence.
Diane, have you got the facility to invite? Sorry, have you got the facility to request Alan Keynes because he's from outside? Obviously, you can't. It's not like an internal body. You can't just invite them live. Not that I understand, anyway.
Yeah, he has. The police have attended before, and Beverly, as Beverly said, he confirmed he would be attending. Albeit late. Yeah, but he has. But this is. Can I just jump in there? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've had an email from him, so I'm sending him the link again now. Okay. Because he's having difficulty getting in, so I'm doing that now. All right. Thanks for the update, Bev. Majid, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was going to say, Diane, given that the police and the ASB officers are asking for evidence, isn't this something that Nadeem Aziz could support as the neighbourhood actions coordinator for Bromford and Hodge in terms of speaking on a regular basis with the residents and being the first point of contact, so we can collate everything via Nadeem. Then Nadeem can present the evidence to the local police and the officers. Yeah, I think if Nadeem's in the meeting, perhaps that's something he could support us with.
Good point. Nadeem.
Hi, Councillor Donaldson.
Are you still with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I just heard what Councillor Mahmood just mentioned. Look, obviously, ever since I came in as Neighbourhood Action Coordinator, amongst other things, I have undertaken, for example, daily walkabouts of the area. Obviously, it needs to fall in within the three themes that I predominantly concentrate on, which I've mentioned many times before: environment, street scene, community safety, quality of life deprivation. Now, on occasions, and I think this has already been mentioned or alluded to, particularly in the Fox and Goose shopping precinct, I have come across begging, particularly outside. I think it was the Greg's shop or the post office. So I have seen that, and I've been advised that some of that begging is from tenants living within the immediate vicinity. Now, there are, just picking up the point that Councillor Mahmood just raised, there are areas that we can, I certainly can deepen engagement with residents. Of course, that's absolutely part of the work that I do. Now, in lieu of that, I have started to have regular, more frequent catch-ups with Chris. As I said, we've called up now. I think we've got regular meetings scheduled in the calendar on a monthly basis, so we can look at potentially task and finish, coordinated kind of action. Now, if that's something that we can concentrate on, perhaps, yeah, absolutely, we'll need to do that. I think there's a comment by Chris as well, coordinated through the community. Absolutely, I think that's right. So if there's things that I can do in conjunction with working with the Community Safety Partnership team, absolutely, yeah. If there's ways that we can unlock working with community groups or residents to deepen that engagement levels within the community, absolutely, I'm very open to that. But it needs to be framed up, but I'm happy to perhaps take that offline with Chris when we next meet up.
Okay, thanks, Nadeem. That sounds like an excellent way forward. And as soon as we've got Sergeant Keynes in, I'll see, what level of evidence he require, what would be sufficient. We've got Jordan Westcar's email addressing the chat if anybody would like to get in touch with Jordan about anything that's been issues that have been raised today. Okay, Russell, you've still got your hand up. Is that a legacy hand, or is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to put it back down.
That's okay. Right, well,
and I'll also look into some of the more promotional stuff around the change program and the message, as you mentioned earlier, so that Tesco's themselves can start saying to their customers, there's an alternative way of giving. You don't have to keep giving them the change out of whatever you've got walking out the store, because as nice as that is and as generous as that is, that's not helping.
It's not helping in the long run. It's just prolonging the issue for these individuals.
It is, because you can be doing all this work,
yeah,
as we've mentioned today, and there's a huge amount of effort and work going into this, and ultimately it's to either displace the problem or move that problem on, or ultimately tackle it. But it's made even harder when we've got such a generous community that's keeping them there.
Exactly, they think they're doing good, but it's just exacerbating their issues in the long run. Bev says she's resent the meeting link to Sergeant Keynes. Hopefully he'll be with us shortly. Okay, so I don't think there's anything I've got to add further to this. Majid, have you got anything that you wish to add, or anybody else? Until we've got Sergeant Keynes in the meeting, I think everything has been said.
I can just add that both Lisa and Fabian, as I say, have been out on more than one occasion now. We are putting together a list of individuals, and we won't be discussing them individuals at a further meeting, because there are different partners who take up different services with them. For instance, Trident Reach outreach work, they will work with them to try and get them some permanent accommodation. If in fact some of those individuals are not presently housed, we've got St Basil's again that we can refer to. We've got other charities that we can go out to and work with them, ultimately to bring them indoors rather than outdoors. But again, we go back to that same question: if there's a good footfall there and a generous footfall, it kind of undoes what we're trying to do.
Exactly, and it brings others in from other areas as well, because it's getting a reputation now.
I've got some posters I can get my hands on.
Please,
Diane,
posters would be
they could be useful.
Appreciated.
Yeah, they could be useful in Tesco certainly, and the adjacent shopping centre.
Yes, they would be appreciated, and if we could put some for the Fox and Goose as well, just to get the message over to the public, because our residents are very generous.
Yes, yes.
I've got another hand up here.
Yes, Diane, you mentioned about that St. Basil's.
Ismail, yeah.
Yes, so St. Basil's helping that young lad. Basically, that young lad, that young lad and his father, they're actually residents of Brockus Road originally. They lived with their father, the granddad, who owns the Stavros Barbers on Washington Road. So originally they were picking up drugs. They actually lived from their house, and their grandfather, kicked them out. They were both living in supported accommodations, coming towards Alum Rock. Both of them were. So what's happened is then he was coming from Saltley Gate back to here to beg at the traffic lights. The son was. So they're actually from Brockus Road originally.
Okay.
So they were because what they were doing on the road, we had to tell them quite a few times. Well, it's going on for a whole year now. That stop picking up drugs from the road. Then in the end, I think the father got fed up of them and basically kicked them out. And then from there, they went to live in a supported accommodation or one of these hostels, and not be far from Saltley Gate. So that father and son were coming from there every day back here. And then I had to tell that son off and his dad that, you live on Brockus Road, what are you doing here? And I even told the father off, because the father's the one that's got his son involved in this. You know, in the first instance, I had to go doing this, and I go, "It's your son, you shouldn't be arranging." There's a photo that we sent you on the email about those 3 individuals that are behind the substation.
Yeah.
That was the father and son together in the.
Okay.
That's them originally. So they're actually ex-residents on Brockhurst Road that were there. So, you know, that kid does need help, but obviously we tried as much as we can. In the end now, he's sitting there every day and he begs at the traffic lights and at Tesco now, unfortunately.
So hopefully he's getting the help that he needs now.
I hope so.
I've got something in the chat that Fabian's put in the chat, and it's Billy Chip. It's Billy Chip. This is something to think about. How it works. So I think it's something you can donate. Actually,
yes.
Look into that instead of giving cash.
Instead of giving, yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, I don't want to go into it now, otherwise I'm going to lose the link. But it's yeah, I'll have a look at that. It looks interesting. So maybe it's something you can donate, and I don't know what you can. Do you know about it, Chris? I haven't come across it.
It's just an alternative. It's an alternative way of giving. It just means that rather than it going in the pockets of the individuals, or in some cases being exploited from them and spent on other things, it goes into this, and it's into this particular fund, and it's administered fairly and honestly, so we know where it's going.
I've never heard of it before, but it looks interesting, so I'll look into that and see if we can get some promotion around it. But
yeah, it might be that I don't know whether Fabian has got any posters on this, or whether there's any posters in it that you can just print off, Diane, or even send the link to the store manager. I'm just looking as we're speaking now.
Yeah, I did want to look, but I might risk losing the link, so I'll best leave it till afterwards. But I do believe we have Sergeant Keynes.
Yeah, speaking. Apologies, couldn't get through.
Okay.
So many teams that
no problem.
Picking me out.
Glad
So
that
I'm back
you can
now.
finally make
All
it. Yeah, so we've just got some residents of Brockhurst Road here today, and basically what it is, they have been reporting in the past. Now they've all got busy lives, they're all working, you know, taking the kids to school. They don't have time, and as we know, sometimes if you ring 101, you can be there, you know, a long time, maybe an hour or so on the line waiting if it's non-urgent, and they just don't have that time. They've done it in the past, but the issues are ongoing, and to get anything done with Birmingham City Council, the evidence is needed, the police logs are needed. So we're just looking at, is there an alternative? Is there an alternative way that we can report these logs?
In relation to what they're reporting, can you actually tell me what they're reporting? Because, you know, we've documented what we've done. We work 6 on 3 off. Yeah, our patrol strategy does cover Brockhurst Road, because we have a patrol strategy regarding Tesco's as well. Yeah, we've spoke to the residents, we've canvassed the residents as well. Rob's done that, Bobbers have done that, and nobody's coming back to us regarding what's going on the opposite 43 Brockhurst. When they said women were screaming, I would have expected someone to be phoning the police in respect to that. We've gone there with the councillor, with the housing officer as well, to actually speak to the fellow regarding his issues that they address. And he's obviously been warned on of his tenancy and so on and so forth, yeah. But like the past 4 weeks, yeah, while we've been on duty, and obviously we can't be there every minute there purely because of demands on the organisation. But what we have done, you know, we've tried to address the issues around there. And when we've done that, we've even had different departments and different agencies go down there on our behalf, and they're saying they're not coming back with nothing at all. So I appreciate the saying they can't phone the police and stuff like that, but again, if we don't get this, we do because we've got the time to do it. But when I speak to my inspector and further up the rank, they'll say, well, you've got no call to service at that location. We can't put our resources into that at the same time. You see what I mean? You know, I know they're struggling. A lot of people struggle with a one-on-one service, but even if they do it via website, they've got to do it, because if they don't do it, we cannot do nothing.
Okay, so it's a vicious circle, unfortunately. Ishmael.
All right, Alan. Basically, you mentioned regards to being told about this. Like Diane said, you know, the email we gave you, Munir sent at least 4 or 5 logs over to yourselves where he's contacted the police about issues that we've had at this property. And the fact that, you know, I don't know.
Is this in relation to Brockhurst Road?
Yeah, number 43A Brockhurst Road.
Yeah, we've been to the property and spoke to the person that lives there.
Yeah.
You know.
But what did he say? Because they mentioned about 10 days ago, regards to one of the other colleagues, Mushtaq, went over and spoke to him. But only yesterday, we've got the same addicts going to his house, back and forward again. And about a week ago, when I was telling Diane when Faisal mentioned the woman rolling around the road, that's the fight in themselves. We can't really get
that was
involved.
on the Saturday morning at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now,
Yeah,
I would expect it if somebody's screaming, the female screaming, regardless of the situation, I would expect someone to pick the phone up. The phone is at 2 o'clock in the morning. I can guarantee you're going to have Bobby's there to deal with it.
To be honest, Alan, you know, you mentioned that now. Well, I'll just bring that up right now to you. In the past, we've had kids hanging around that area before. My neighbor made a phone call, and we had someone, after they've gone, about 45 minutes later, someone just drove past. So, you know what I mean? You got to understand where we come from as well. We have made these phone calls in the past. And unfortunately, when the people do turn up, things done and dusted and gone now. And in regards to them knocking people's residence doors, I live on number 24 Brockhurst Road. Ain't no one ever knocked my door.
Well, I can assure you, we have locked the doors. We have documented it. We do put body worn camera to make sure it's being done.
Alan, I'm not saying you're lying, but I'm at home every day. So if anyone knocks the door, especially a police officer, I'd know. I'm the first to speak to you, because that tenant in that house has been telling all of the residents about me, that I keep on grassing him up about him being his drunk mates on the grass, and people come to his house. And I told him, look, if you want to come and speak to me, come and speak to me as well. I'm always available. So if anyone knocks my door, you'll have a log of it that you spoke to Mohammed Ismail of 24 Brockhurst Road.
Yeah.
And like I said, if there's anything you need any evidence of me, I'll tell you what I see. Like I said, there's other residents too. The reason why they ain't ringing you no more, because in the past when we have emailed, things done and dusted now. And obviously someone drives past and all that. I've spoke to you about it on the road before.
Yeah, but when you've told us, I've got officers to go around and actually address what's going on.
But the thing is, what we're trying to say is,
I mean, the expectation will be that you tell us we'll turn out, and when we are on duty, we will turn out. But I can't say we're going to have Bobby's there 24/7. I'm not saying we shouldn't have officer there 24/7, but we will act on the information you're given to us. Like I said, you told us about 43 Brockhurst Road. We've gone there in conjunction with the council as well, because we can't do it on our own. Yeah, and he has been warned about his conduct and what he shouldn't be doing and should be doing. Yeah, in that respect. So you're telling us, we've documented it. We spoke to the council, spoke to the housing regarding it. If we need to move forward to get anything civilly done, this is how we can do it. We don't just ignore what you're saying. So if we do put it in the document, and then we move forward with it regarding civil action and so on and so forth.
But every time I email, which Diane will see, I mean, is I put a CC to the West Midlands local Hodge police team. So yes. I'm like a sit and log. So
yeah, we don't get a reply from that.
Exactly, and which I don't mind. But what I do is it gets sent to, because I was told that's the address it goes to. I don't expect a reply off them, but that's me giving them information regards to this now. Because in the past,
so is that does that constitute a log?
What, the email?
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't constitute a log. Wouldn't constitute. It just comes through to us, and we just act, because ultimately we're going to be the only people who are going to see the whole of like Stepford Police, they won't get it. And then what we'll do, the information you give us, we then pass it on to our system so everybody knows about it.
Okay, so as Majid was raised earlier, would a neighbourhood action coordinator be able to gather evidence that can be used by Birmingham City Council?
The information that comes from, we document it, we put it in as an information log, and we can actually say, for example, there was a drugs address that had drugs at the address. We would then use that information to go to the council or get to the magistrate and get a warrant from it. Yeah, but then don't get thinking because the email, we don't respond to the email. As soon as the email comes in, we do react on it, you know. So it's not as if we're ignoring what's going on.
Those emails, them aside, the 4 or 5 logs, Diane, that Munir sent you were of direct drug deals that were done outside that property by the addicts that were using that property. I don't know whether there's anything being done about that, because those same individuals are still using that property. That's the question that I was trying to put here, because obviously, no doubt someone's gone there, but they had this problem has been logged before. And I think people have gone down, but because the problem's still happening now, so we don't see the point of just logging the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, I
that
know,
is the
because it
problem
has to have, they don't get action automatically taken against them. It has to get, they have to have warnings, and it's a staged approach. Is that correct, Chris? Could you throw some light?
Yeah, just for Alan's, I'll give Alan a, if you don't mind, courtesy kind of whistle stop tour in that. Alan, I've explained to the councillors and the residents that there is a sustained effort of a number of agencies involved, including obviously your neighbourhood team, in regards to identifying and challenging and taking appropriate action, albeit a lot of it is intervention based and support based for those people who appear to be begging or don't have a home address. So there is a marked process that we have to go through, like yourselves, like your officers, where we have to provide support and wraparound services before we even look and consider types of enforcement. But ultimately, we can enforce things like community protection warning letters or community protection warning community protection notices also, as well as injunctions, but we're not at that stage yet. I mentioned, and Neil mentioned, about 18 Brockhurst. Neil has been engaging very, very well with the managing agents, and they have taken and have considered other measures, including surveillance at their own property, in regards to bringing in positive measures that we've asked them to do. Which so they are obviously following what we're asking of them. In regards to, and also in addition, we've got the street intervention officers who are going up on a regular basis, and I know your team have been patrolling as well. So there's a lot of sustained efforts and work going into that. The property that is being spoken about just now, was that 43? Or was
it's 43.
43
is a Birmingham City Council property. I don't know whether Mushtaq is still here, because there is a stepped approach to anything, like there is in the police organisations, like there is in community safety, like there is in housing. There has to be a sustained, in this case, sustained reporting to the housing officer, to the housing manager, in order for them to look at the conditions of tenancy, ultimately to see whether there's been a serious breach or not. I think in this case, there is evidence to support a warning letter, which I believe has been sent to them. Part of that warning letter, I'm assuming, would be reminding that particular tenant, regardless of age, that they have a obligation in regards to their tenancy. Now, what might come back from that, and I'm just surmising, what might come back to that is that the tenant themselves are under duress and are ultimately giving in to these individuals because threats are being made against them. That will be something that the housing officer will look into and ultimately address. There are mechanisms and processes around all of that before we actually start to look and take action against the individual. The ultimate enforcement would be eviction. And you're talking about someone living in a sheltered housing scheme that is probably mature in age. So that would be a very hard decision. But before that decision is met, there would be a number of interventions, discussions and considerations alongside Alan's team.
Like I said, in relation to that, we conducted a visit on the 12th with the housing officer to warn him of his actions, warn him of his behaviours and who he's actually going to address. We got to be mindful as well. He may well be being used and abused, and it's called cocooning. Yeah. Yep. So I appreciate what everybody's saying, but we have gone around there, spoke to him, and he's been warned about his tendency. I've dealt with this sort of stuff before. It's not an easy process. It takes a lot of time, and I appreciate people's frustrations, but as a neighbourhood team, we will manage it. And again, we do manage to go around there because I do believe he's vulnerable. Or vulnerable by the nature of the people going to his address. If anybody is there taking any drugs, drug dealing, acting antisocial behaviour, we will take positive action to reduce it.
Thank you, Alan. Fazal, you still got your hand up. Did you want to come in?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention with regard to the logs, you know, when there was multiple like large fights that happened outside number 18 multiple times throughout the years, windows were smashed. We did make logs to those. There was like
you've got those
large incidents there, but to be honest, there wasn't much police action with regard to those. There was some incidents where there was a fight going on right outside in front of my house, and then the police ended up turning 3 hours later. That's why we've got fed up of logging continuously where nothing's happened. We think these small matters, no one's going to turn up. That's why this has been happening.
It's a laborious procedure, but that's
because if windows are getting smashed and then people are rolling around outside your house and you're making these logs, nothing's going to happen. Of course, you're going to think at 4 a.m. in the morning, I'm not going to go call the police just because a lady's screaming outside when they're not going to turn up if people are actually fighting and smashing windows.
Yeah, I totally sympathise with you on that one, but there's the procedure is, you know, to get an eviction, that it is not going to happen immediately. It does have to go through a process.
Absolutely, it does.
And it's not something the courts, you know, unless they had lots of evidence, it's not something that they, you know, they would do lightly. So what we were asking earlier was, if Nadeem collated all this evidence, is that something that could be actioned by Birmingham City Council, taken into consideration?
Diane, is that the information around predominantly the property at 43A?
Yeah.
That is something that I feel should go through to either Mushtaq or that should be going to the housing officer. I think Jean Brennan.
Jean is dealing with it. Jean, she has issued a warning.
I think all evidence needs to go in that direction, so that Jean or Mushtaq can build up a file of evidence. If that file of evidence is enough to take forward for some type of enforcement action, I'm sure that will happen.
Okay.
Just to add, Councillor Donaldson, I'm happy to work as always with Mushtaq and the housing team and the community safety partnership team. So, very open to continuing that partnership working. But as Chris just alluded to, probably best. I don't want to encroach on any work that probably sits or would sit best with the housing department, but very happy as always to continue to work with Mushtaq and the great team at the City Council Housing Department.
We'll discuss this offline and then we can have some emails about that, see which is the best way forward. But I've just got a couple of notes in the chat. Majid has said if there's an imminent risk to a person, the police should be attending. Ishmael, 100%. If the resident at 43A is being forced into allowing people into his property, then the police should be dealing with it and removing these people. This person, he's letting these people into his house. He obviously, it appears that he's under duress to let them into his house. So,
in relation to that, when we spoke to him, he's telling us he's not letting people in his dress, he's not being cocooned. But from professionally, I'd say he's been, but he will turn and catch the officer and says, I'll manage my address, I'll look after it. Yeah, even though we've warned him and we said, look, you've got to be careful of your welfare as well. But yes, he's not listening to us. You know.
He's obviously under duress to let these people in, yet he'll say one thing to you when you're there, but obviously when there's no one there, he it seems that he's been put under duress to let them enter the property. So I don't know, it's a very difficult situation. Ishmael, did you have something to add?
Yes, Diane, I think there probably is a situation where some people are forcing themselves upon him, but not everyone is, because some of them people are sitting outside drinking with him. So there's some people he's made friendships with. And the fact that because he wants company, because he's there on his own, we've noticed that because it's them coming at night, fair enough, they probably forced themselves on him, dragging himself into his house. But during the day, they're actually sitting there while he's drinking. So they sit outside with him. So he knows who these people are. He knows them on a regular basis. They've got their own. You know, if you got the door locked and someone's forcing their way into his house, it's understandable. But his door stays open. So it's like a drop-in center. Just open the door, walk straight in. That's what's happened, because that's the understanding. That's what I understand, because I see it all the time. If he's been forced, you understand him knocking on the door, saying, forcing their way in. That door stays open. So just walk in straight away into the property. So that's where I understand some situations, it might be forced, but majority of these people that go to his property, he allows them in. And they're sitting outdoors with him, so he knows them personally as well, to be honest with you, because otherwise the door would be locked, wouldn't it? Would you leave your front door open?
Absolutely not. Mushtaq, can we have
Yeah, I mean, I think
can you attend the property to have a word with the resident?
I mean, I'm just going to say that we deal with a lot of cocooning and harassment and those type of cases. There are a lot of vulnerable tenants that have, various complex needs, and sometimes, I mean, he hasn't told us at the moment that obviously anyone's taken advantage of him, but obviously we will pursue that. But we have come across many other situations where people's vulnerabilities are being exploited, whether that's drugs, that's drink, that's basically any other money or something like that. But obviously we will, any evidence that's basically available in terms of what he's doing, what he isn't doing, obviously if that can be passed to us, then obviously we've got an live investigation open. We've recently visited him. Any other evidence that's available, then obviously we'll work with the police and obviously take that forward. But obviously it's difficult to say what you're going to do or when you're going to do it without knowing the full facts and obviously investigating and giving him the opportunity to respond as well. So obviously that investigation is ongoing. If there's any information in terms of dates, times, or whoever's going, then obviously pass that information over to us and we'll include it as part of our investigation.
Okay, thank you, Mushtaq. I think it's an effort now we need everybody to work together on this one. I know it's frustrating for the residents, but please, let's just work, have a bit of patience and work together, get everything logged, get it reported. You can go on to live chat instead of, and I've gone on to live chat before. I've been sat there, just gone onto the computer and just waited for the live chat, which is much quicker than 101, and just carry on doing my business. Haven't got to listen to the phone ringing out and that, and then all the evidence can be given over live chat, which is a much easier and faster system. I know it's not something that the residents want to hear, but let's just have a concerted effort between all the agencies, the police and the residents, and let's move forward and ensure that this individual, if he needs, well, hopefully he doesn't get evicted, but he needs to be listening to the message that's coming across from Birmingham City Council and let other residents live in peace, basically. So I thank all the support from the other officers. Let's all work together.
Absolutely, Diane.
Is there anything anyone would like to add? Ishmael, thank you. Got a thumbs up.
Like I said, if you're struggling with live chat and web chat, I know it's not the best system. Just drop me an email and I'll get actions. All right. So just send me an email. If they're struggling, just send me an email. I'll get somebody out. We are short on numbers now because we're losing another piece.
I know you're short of numbers. It's not the best time of year. People are on holiday. I get that.
Everybody's all over the place at the moment. So just send it through and I can pass it out to the wider police organisation. All right.
All right then. Thank you. Right. Well, thank you everyone for coming along today, and again, giving your time, and thank you for all the residents for coming. Is there anything else, any other business anyone would like to raise? No. Okay. Any updates? Councillor Mahmood, is there anything that you'd like to update people on?
notes that we've allocated the community chest. Could you just let us know if that money has now been allocated to the various groups and departments in the council that we agreed for the money to go through? Because we've not had any feedback whatsoever from anyone.
It hasn't been allocated to the groups as yet, but we had a letter to say that it will be honoured, that that money will be ring fenced for its intended recipients. So I know one group has already supplied their bank details, so I'll follow that up to see that if they have received the funds as yet, but the funds will be going out. Also, I'd just like to update on the next mobile household recycling centre, and that's on. Yes, Chris, if anyone needs to leave the meeting, they're welcome to do so. Thank you for their attendance, and we do appreciate their attendance. It's been very informative and helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Keynes. So the next mobile household recycling centre is the Tuesday, the 12th of September, South Vaughan Avenue, and that's 7 AM to 12:30. Tuesday, the 12th of September. So, as always, our mobile household recycling centres have been very popular, and it's keeping our streets very clean and free of fly tipping. Any other issues from residents that they'd like to raise before we go? Any comments?
No, that's it, Diane. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, and thank you. And I'll be in touch with you and share the contact details and information. Okay. Right, and just moving on to the next meeting, which is Monday, the 18th of September, and that's 6 PM. That's at Colborne Primary School, 150 Stetchford Road, B34 6BJ. And we're going to have a highways engineer in attendance. So if you've got any issues around roads, potholes, pavements, etc., please feel free to attend. Okay, thank you everyone, and thank you, Bev, for your support on the meeting.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.